I'm Samantha Bennett, 29, a kindergarten teacher with a modest life that makes me genuinely happy. Growing up with wealthy, status-obsessed parents was never easy, especially when I chose a path they considered beneath our family name. When I fell in love with Jason, a mechanic with a heart of gold, I thought maybe they'd see past his occupation to the man I adored. The text I received 3 days before our wedding crushed that hope completely. Don't expect us at such a trivial event for someone at the bottom. Before I share how this rejection changed my life, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button to support others who've had to choose between family expectations and true happiness. To understand why my parents' absence cut so deeply, you need to know what it was like growing up as a Bennett. My parents, Catherine and Harold Bennett, weren't just wealthy, they were obsessed with their social status. Our sprawling estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, hosted charity galas where the guest list was more important than the cause. Every detail of our lives was curated to project the perfect image of success. From my earliest memories, I recall my mother inspecting my outfits before school, ensuring I represented the Bennett name appropriately. "Appearances matter more than you realize, Samantha," she would say, adjusting my already perfect collar. My father, meanwhile, spoke constantly of legacy, connections, and the importance of marrying into the right family one day. While other kids had playrooms filled with toys, I had etiquette lessons and advanced academic tutoring. My parents' vision for me was crystal clear: prestigious university, career in finance or law, strategic marriage to a man from a similar background, and eventually, children who would continue the Bennett legacy of wealth and influence. The first major rift between us came when I was 16. During a volunteer day at my private school, I worked with children at an underfunded public elementary school. Something clicked that day as I helped a little girl sound out words in a picture book, her face lighting up with each new discovery. I came home animated, talking about wanting to become a teacher. My parents exchanged that look I'd come to recognize, part disappointment, part determination to correct my course. "Teachers are noble, darling, but they're servants, essentially," my mother said, sipping her wine. "Bennetts don't serve, we lead." My father was more direct: "There's no money or prestige in teaching, Samantha. It's fine to volunteer, but your actual career needs to reflect your upbringing." Despite their disapproval, that spark never died. I majored in education at Boston University instead of attending my father's Ivy League alma mater. Each semester brought phone calls questioning my choices, reminders of how I was wasting my potential and embarrassing the family. After graduation, I took a position at a public elementary school in a middle-class neighborhood. The starting salary was modest, but the work filled me with purpose. I found an affordable apartment with a roommate, began building my classroom supplies, and created lesson plans late into the night. For the first time, I felt like I was living authentically. My parents' wedding anniversary fell about 6 months into my first teaching year. I saved up to buy them an expensive bottle of wine and drove to their house for the celebration. My father took one look at my sensible car and practical clothes and sighed. "When are you going to grow out of this phase, Samantha? Your cousin Melissa just made junior partner at her law firm. She just bought a condo in Manhattan." "I'm not in a phase, Dad. I love my job." My mother touched my hair with a frown. "Love doesn't pay for proper highlights, dear." That evening set the pattern for our relationship over the next few years. They viewed my career choice as a temporary rebellion, while I grew increasingly frustrated by their inability to see my happiness as valid. Then came the rainstorm that changed everything. My old Honda broke down on a particularly vicious April afternoon. I was stuck on the side of the road, rain pouring through my partially open window while I waited for roadside assistance. A tow truck pulled up, and out stepped Jason Miller. He was soaked within seconds as he assessed my car, but he smiled the entire time, cracking jokes about Connecticut weather while hooking up my vehicle. During the ride to his shop, he asked about my day before the breakdown. I found myself telling this stranger about my kindergartner's reaction to the thunderstorm, how we'd turned fear into a science lesson about weather. "That's amazing," he said, and the genuine admiration in his voice caught me off guard. Those kids are lucky to have a teacher who turns scary stuff into learning. Jason's auto shop was small but immaculately organized. While he inspected my car, I noticed photos on the wall: Jason coaching Little League, Jason at a community cleanup day, Jason with an elderly woman who turned out to be his grandmother whom he'd helped raise after his parents died. What should have been a simple car repair turned into coffee while I waited, which turned into dinner the following weekend. Jason was everything my parents would hate: working class, content with his modest business, completely unimpressed by status or wealth. He was also kind, honest, and looked at me like I was something precious. Our relationship progressed naturally. When I finally introduced him to my parents at an uncomfortable dinner at their country club, my fears were confirmed. They were coldly polite to his face but pulled me aside before dessert. "A mechanic, Samantha?" "Really?" my mother hissed. "What could you possibly have in common?" "Values, Mom. Kindness. Things that actually matter." My father was more calculated. "If you're determined to slum it, at least be discreet. Don't bring him to events where you might meet someone suitable." I left early that night, apologizing to Jason for my parents' behavior. He just squeezed my hand. "They want the best for you. They just don't understand that the best isn't always the most expensive." For 2 years, Jason and I built our relationship while my parents kept their distance, occasionally sending articles about suitable bachelors or career opportunities that would get me back on track. When Jason proposed with a modest diamond ring he'd saved months to purchase, I said yes without hesitation. That night, cuddled on our couch in the small apartment we now shared, I felt both completely happy and deeply sad, knowing how my parents would react. "We should still invite them," Jason said, always more forgiving than me. "They're your family. They should have the chance to be there." So with hope I hadn't earned but couldn't quite abandon, I picked up the phone to tell my parents I was getting married. My hands trembled as I dialed my parents' number. 3 rings later, my mother answered with her customary crisp Catherine Bennett speaking. "Hi Mom, it's me. Samantha." "What a surprise. We were just discussing the Morgan's daughter. She's been appointed to the federal bench. 34 and already so accomplished." I swallowed the familiar sting of comparison and forced brightness into my voice. "That's great. Listen, I'm calling because I have news. Jason proposed last night, and I said yes. We're getting married." The silence lasted so long I checked to see if the call had dropped. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice carefully controlled. "I see. And the ring?" "Not congratulations. Not when." "The ring. It's beautiful, Mom. A round diamond with dash. Carat weight? Quality? These things matter, Samantha." "It's perfect because Jason chose it," I replied, my initial excitement curdling. "He saved for months to dash. Your father should hear this directly." "Harold." I heard rustling as the phone changed hands. "Samantha?" My father's authoritative voice filled the line. "Your mother says you're engaged to the mechanic. His name is Jason, Dad. And yes, we're engaged. The wedding will be in September, and I really hope you and Mom will be there. It would mean a lot to me." Another painful silence before my father cleared his throat. "You've always been headstrong, Samantha, but this is taking rebellion too far. This man isn't suitable. He can't provide the life you were raised to expect." "I don't want the life I was raised to expect," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I want a life with someone who loves me for who I am, not what I represent." "This infatuation will pass," my father continued as if I hadn't spoken. "When it does, you'll regret tying yourself to someone so far beneath your potential. We raised you for better things than becoming a mechanic's wife." The conversation deteriorated from there. By the time I hung up, I was sitting on the bathroom floor, tears streaming down my face. Jason found me there and simply held me, not needing to ask what had happened. "We should still send them a formal invitation," he suggested after I'd calmed down. "Maybe seeing it in writing will make it more real for them." I nodded, clinging to this last, fragile hope. We selected simple but elegant invitations that reflected our modest wedding plans. Rather than mailing my parents, I decided to hand-deliver it, thinking a face-to-face conversation might break through their resistance. The following weekend, I drove to my childhood home, invitation in hand. The housekeeper showed me to the sunroom where my parents were enjoying their morning coffee, the newspaper spread between them. "Samantha," my mother said, looking surprised. "We weren't expecting you. I wanted to drop this off personally." I placed the invitation on the table. "And I hoped we could talk." My father glanced at the envelope without touching it. "Sit down. Would you like coffee?" For the next hour, we engaged in a bizarre dance around the subject. My parents asked about my teaching job with barely concealed disapproval, mentioned acquaintances' children and their accomplishments, and discussed an upcoming charity gala. The invitation sat untouched on the table like an unwelcome guest. Finally, my mother picked it up, sliding one manicured finger under the seal. "September is soon," she remarked, scanning the details. "A garden ceremony at the community center? Samantha, we know people who could get you the Westbrook Country Club with just a phone call." "We don't want the country club, Mom. The community center garden is beautiful, and it's within our budget." My father set down his coffee cup with a sharp click. "Budget. Such an unnecessary constraint when we could help." "We don't want your help," I said quietly. "We want to start our marriage on our terms, not yours." "This is about more than one day," my mother interjected. "It's about the message you're sending. The connections you're severing. The doors you're closing." "I'm not closing doors. I'm choosing which ones to walk through." My father leaned forward, his expression suddenly earnest. "Samantha, it's not too late to reconsider. Craig Wilson is back from London. Divorced now, no children, and made partner at his father's firm. He always admired you at the club events. I could arrange a dinner." I stared at him in disbelief. "Dad, I'm engaged. To Jason. The man I love." "Love," my mother scoffed softly. "A fleeting emotion. Security, position, compatible backgrounds, these are the foundations of lasting marriages." "Like yours?" I challenged, gesturing to the polite distance between them on the sofa, the formal way they addressed each other, the separate bedrooms I'd discovered as a teenager. My father's face hardened. "We've provided you with every advantage, every opportunity. And this is how you thank us, by throwing it all away on some grease monkey with no prospects." I stood up, suddenly exhausted by their inability to see beyond status and wealth. "Jason has plenty of prospects. He's honest, hardworking, and he loves me completely. That's more than enough." I left with their promise to consider attending ringing hollow in my ears. 3 days before the wedding, as I was finalizing seating arrangements with my maid of honor, my phone chimed with a text message from my father. "After careful consideration, we will not be attending. Don't expect us at such a trivial event for someone at the bottom. When you come to your senses about this unfortunate marriage, we'll discuss your return to the family." The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. My friend took the phone from my shaking hands and read it, her expression changing from curiosity to outrage. Those entitled, judgmental. She stopped herself, pulling me into a hug instead. "I'm so sorry, Sam." That evening, I showed Jason the message. His face flushed with anger before softening into concern. "Are you okay? We can postpone if you want more time to work things out with them." I shook my head, a strange calm replacing the initial hurt. "No. They've made their choice, and I've made mine. I choose you, Jason. I choose happiness over status. I choose love over legacy." As I said the words, I realized I meant them completely. The wedding would proceed without my parents. Their absence would hurt, but it wouldn't define the day or our life together. The morning of our wedding dawned with perfect September sunshine, as if nature itself was contradicting my parents' judgment of the day as trivial. I woke in my best friend Leah's guest room, where I'd spent the night in keeping with tradition. "Big day, bride-to-be," Leah sang, bringing in coffee and toast. She'd been my roommate in college and had witnessed the full evolution of my relationship with my parents. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous. Happy. Sad." I stirred my coffee, watching the cream create patterns. "All of it at once." "That's normal even without the parental drama," she assured me, sitting beside me on the bed. "Focus on the happy part. You're marrying your person today." The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of hairstyling, makeup, and the careful donning of my dress, simple, elegant, and within our budget. As my bridesmaids exclaimed over the final result, I felt a pang thinking about my mother. Despite our differences, I'd always imagined she'd be here, fussing over my veil, perhaps finally approving of something I'd chosen. "You look absolutely stunning," Leah said, interrupting my thoughts. "Jason is going to lose his mind when he sees you." We arrived at the community center an hour before the ceremony. The garden had been transformed with white chairs, floral arches, and twinkling lights strung through the trees. Simple, beautiful, and completely us. Through the window, I could see Jason greeting guests, looking handsome and slightly nervous in his suit. His parents had passed away years ago, but his sister stood beside him, helping direct people to their seats. The sight of her, so supportive, so present, made my parents' absence even more glaring. "We saved 2 seats in the front row," my wedding coordinator said gently, following my gaze. "Just in case they change their minds." "Is that still what you want?" I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. I still held a tiny, irrational hope that they might appear at the last minute, unable to miss their only daughter's wedding day. As the ceremony time approached, I watched through the window as those 2 seats remained conspicuously empty. Each arriving guest seemed to glance at them, understanding their significance. "It's time," the coordinator finally said. "Are you ready?" I took a deep breath, pushing down the hurt. Yes. My original plan had been to walk down the aisle alone, a statement of independence. But as I stood at the entrance to the garden, I was gripped by a sudden fear. The aisle seemed impossibly long, and the absence of my father at my side felt like a physical weight. Then I felt a hand on my arm. It was David, Jason's best friend since childhood. "Jason wanted me to check if you needed anything," he said, then noticed my expression. "Hey, you okay?" "Just a moment of panic," I admitted. "I thought I was fine walking alone, but suddenly it feels intimidating," he supplied. "Look, I know I'm not your dad, but I'd be honored to walk with you. Only if you want, of course." His kindness nearly undid me. "Thank you," I whispered. "I'd appreciate that." The music began, and with David steadying me, I began the walk toward my future. Halfway down the aisle, my eyes locked with Jason's, and everything else fell away. The empty seats, the pitying glances, the family drama, none of it mattered in the face of his love, so clear and unwavering. When David placed my hand in Jason's, I felt anchored again. The ceremony proceeded with personal vows that left few dry eyes in the audience. We promised to create our own traditions, to value character over status, to build a family based on love rather than obligation. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared, and the garden erupted in genuine celebration. The reception was held in the community center's renovated ballroom. During dinner, I occasionally glanced at the table we'd reserved for my parents, now occupied by some of Jason's colleagues. Jason's sister Ashley gave the first toast, her voice warm with emotion. "To my brother and his beautiful bride, thank you for showing us what it means to choose love over everything else. Samantha, our parents would have adored you, and I'm so grateful to officially call you my sister." Jason's uncle spoke next, followed by Leah, each emphasizing the strength of our relationship and the community of friends surrounding us. As I listened, I realized that while my blood family might be absent, the room was full of people who had chosen to be present for us, who valued us for exactly who we were. When it came time for my toast, I stood with shaking hands. "Thank you all for being here today. Your presence means more than you know." I swallowed hard. Family can be complicated. Today, some chairs remained empty that I'd hoped would be filled. But looking around this room, I see so much love, so much genuine support, that I can only feel grateful. Just as I finished speaking, a commotion at the entrance caught everyone's attention. An elegant older woman entered, slightly out of breath. "Amanda?" I gasped, recognizing my childhood nanny, the woman who had essentially raised me while my parents built their empire. She hurried to my side, enveloping me in a familiar embrace that smelled of the lavender perfume she'd worn throughout my childhood. "I'm so sorry I'm late, darling. The train was delayed, and then the taxi took forever." "I didn't know you were coming," I said, tears threatening to ruin my makeup. "I tried to reach you, but your number had changed. Your mother's assistant called me yesterday," Amanda explained, then lowered her voice. "I don't think your mother knows she did it." The girl felt terrible about what happened. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. "I've been keeping this for you. It was your grandmother's, your father's mother. She asked me to give it to you on your wedding day, no matter what." Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pearl pendant. "She wasn't like them," Amanda whispered. "She would have been here today." The unexpected connection to my grandmother, a woman I barely remembered but who had apparently thought of my future, broke something open inside me. I wept as Amanda fastened the necklace around my neck, feeling both the pain of my parents' rejection and the surprising comfort of this inherited blessing. When Jason and I took to the dance floor for our first dance, the necklace rested against my collarbone like a talisman. As he held me close, swaying to our chosen song, he whispered, "You okay?" I nodded against his shoulder. "I am. This is still the happiest day of my life." And despite everything, it was true. The day hadn't been perfect, but it had been authentic. We had married surrounded by people who truly saw us and celebrated our love without conditions or expectations. In that moment, dancing in my husband's arms, I felt a freedom I'd been seeking my entire life. 6 months into our marriage, Jason and I had settled into a comfortable rhythm in our one-bedroom apartment. Weekday mornings were a coordinated dance of quick showers, coffee handoffs, and kisses goodbye as he headed to his auto shop and I to my kindergarten classroom. Evenings were simple dinners, walks around the neighborhood, and falling asleep tangled together while discussing our days. I loved hearing about the cars Jason fixed, the customers he helped, and his plans for expanding his business. He listened with equal interest to my stories about 5-year-olds learning to write their names or make peace with classmates over shared toys. "Miss Bennett?" A small voice interrupted my daydreaming one afternoon as my students worked on art projects. "Is this right?" I looked down at Zoe's paper, where she'd created a system of symbols next to pictures of different animals. "What are these marks, Zoe?" "It's animal language," she explained excitedly. "Each animal talks different, so they need different letters." Intrigued, I asked her to explain further, and soon the entire class had gathered around as Zoe detailed her invented writing system. Seeing an opportunity, I adjusted my lesson plans for the week, creating activities that explored different writing systems around the world, paired with animal habitats and sounds. The children were enthralled. Parents began reporting that their kids were creating animal languages at home, asking for books about different countries and alphabets. When our principal, Mrs. Chen, observed one of these lessons, she stayed for the entire morning. "This is remarkable, Samantha," she said afterward. "You've turned one child's creative idea into a cross-curricular exploration that has everyone engaged. Would you consider documenting your approach for the district newsletter?" The article I wrote, following children's lead, How One Student's Invention Transformed Our Classroom, caught more attention than I expected. The local newspaper picked it up, interviewing me about child-led learning and featuring photos of my classroom's Animal Language Center, where students continued developing their writing systems. "Mrs. Miller," one reporter said, using my married name which still gave me a little thrill, "your methods are quite different from traditional kindergarten curriculum. Where did you develop this approach?" I thought about crediting my prestigious education courses but realized the truth was simpler. I believe in respecting children's natural curiosity. My students teach me as much as I teach them. The resulting article led to an invitation to speak at a regional education conference. When I showed Jason the email, he picked me up and spun me around our tiny kitchen. "This is huge, Sam. They want you to present to other teachers about your methods." "It's just a small breakout session," I demurred, though secretly thrilled. "It's recognition of how amazing you are," he insisted. "I've always known it, and now everyone else is figuring it out too." While my career was taking unexpected turns, Jason's auto shop was steadily building a reputation for honest work and fair prices. What had started as a one-man operation now employed 2 additional mechanics. The waiting room, once Spartan, now featured comfortable chairs, good coffee, and free Wi-Fi, small touches that made customers choose his shop over larger competitors. The Reynolds account came through, he announced one evening, referring to a local delivery company that had been considering Jason's shop for their fleet maintenance. "They're bringing all 12 vans to us from now on." "That's amazing." I hugged him tightly. "We should celebrate." "Actually," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice, "I was thinking maybe it's time to talk about our own next steps." He pulled out a folder containing listings for modest houses in our area. "The business is stable, you're doing well, maybe it's time we look for a place of our own? Something with a yard, maybe an extra bedroom or 2 for the future?" The implication was clear, and my heart swelled. We spent that evening dreaming about home layouts, garden spaces, and rooms that might someday belong to children. 2 months later, I missed my period. The pregnancy test showed positive before the recommended waiting time had even elapsed. When I showed Jason, his eyes widened before filling with tears. He placed a gentle hand on my still flat stomach, looking at me with such wonder that any lingering fears dissolved. As my pregnancy progressed, we found a small 3-bedroom house with a fenced backyard in a good school district. It needed cosmetic updates but had solid bones and was within our budget with careful saving. Jason spent weekends painting and making repairs while I organized our belongings, preparing for both the move and the baby. "Should we tell your parents?" Jason asked one evening as we assembled a crib in what would become the nursery. He had never pushed me about my relationship with them, understanding the hurt ran deep, but occasionally gently suggested possibilities for reconciliation. I rested a hand on my now visible baby bump. "I don't know. Part of me wants to give them a chance to be grandparents. Another part is afraid they'll reject the baby the way they rejected us." "Whatever you decide, I support you," Jason said, always my steadfast partner. After much consideration, I designed a simple birth announcement card. No ultrasound photo, no gushing sentiment, just a tasteful notice that Jason and Samantha Miller were expecting their first child in June. I mailed it to my parents' address with a brief note providing our new home address and phone number. Weeks passed with no response. I told myself I hadn't really expected one, but the silence still stung. The nursery was completed, painted a soft green with woodland animals stenciled on one wall. Jason had built a rocking chair that became my favorite spot to sit, imagining the baby in my arms. My presentation at the education conference was scheduled for my 7th month of pregnancy. Despite my obviously pregnant state, I felt confident and prepared as I shared my approach to child-led curriculum design with a room full of educators. The questions afterward were thoughtful and enthusiastic, and several attendees asked for my contact information to continue the conversation. As I gathered my materials, the conference organizer approached. "That was exceptional, Mrs. Miller." Several district curriculum coordinators were very impressed. "Would you consider allowing us to record a similar presentation for our online professional development series?" Opportunities continued to unfold as my due date approached. When our daughter Lily was born on a warm June morning, my world shifted on its axis. Jason and I marveled at her tiny fingers, her perfect lips, the way she looked directly into our eyes as if she recognized us. In the hospital, surrounded by flowers and gifts from friends, colleagues, and Jason's extended family, there was still a noticeable absence. No grandparents from my side visited or called. The birth announcement I'd sent returned no response. She's perfect, Jason whispered, watching me feed our daughter. Just like her mother. At that moment, cradling my child with my husband's arm around us both, I felt a completion that transcended the empty spaces in my family tree. We were creating something new, something built on love rather than obligation or status. My parents' absence hurt, but it couldn't diminish the joy of what we had created together. 2 years flew by in a blur of first smiles, first steps, and first words. Lily grew into a curious, spirited toddler with Jason's easy laugh and what he insisted were my determined eyes. Our little house became truly home, with finger paintings on the refrigerator and toys perpetually underfoot. I had returned to teaching part-time, arranging my schedule to maximize time with Lily while still pursuing my passion for education. My conference presentation had led to consulting opportunities with neighboring school districts, allowing me to share my teaching philosophy while earning extra income for our family savings. Jason's auto shop had expanded to include a dedicated fleet service division, thanks to several corporate contracts. He now employed 5 mechanics and was considering opening a second location. Despite our growing success, we maintained our modest lifestyle, focusing on experiences rather than possessions. One ordinary Tuesday, I was helping Lily build a tower of blocks when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Samantha Miller?" a professional female voice asked when I answered. "Yes, this is she. This is Patricia Andrews, assistant to Harold Bennett. Your father would like to arrange a meeting with you this Thursday at noon. Would that be convenient?" The block tower crashed as I froze in surprise. My father wants to meet with me? After 2 years of silence? Yes, Mrs. Miller. Mr. Bennett specifically requested lunch at the Grange restaurant. He said the matter is somewhat urgent. Curiosity and caution warred within me. Did he say what this is regarding? I'm afraid he didn't share those details with me, Patricia replied, though something in her tone suggested she knew more than she was saying. After ending the call, I immediately phoned Jason at work. My father wants to meet, I said without preamble when he answered. What? Out of the blue like this? His concern was evident. Did he say why? No, just that it's urgent. His assistant made it sound very formal. Jason was quiet for a moment. Do you want to go? I think I need to, I said slowly. If only to understand why now, after all this time. Do you want me to come with you? No, I think I need to handle this myself first. But thank you for offering. Thursday arrived with perfect spring weather, a stark contrast to my internal storm of emotions. I chose my outfit carefully, professional but not showy, a simple dress that reflected my current life rather than the designer clothes of my past. The Grange was one of the most exclusive restaurants in the area, requiring reservations weeks in advance unless you were someone like Harold Bennett. I gave my name to the host, who immediately escorted me to a private dining room at the back. My father stood as I entered, looking older than I remembered. His perfectly tailored suit hung slightly looser on his frame, and new lines marked his face. Samantha, he said formally, gesturing to the chair across from him. Thank you for coming. Hello, Father, I replied, matching his tone. Your invitation was unexpected. A server appeared with water and menus, giving me a moment to compose myself. When we were alone again, my father cleared his throat. You're looking well, he offered. Teaching still agreeing with you? The casual question after years of silence nearly made me laugh. Yes, very much so. I was recently named Teacher of the Year for our district. Something flashed across his face, pride? Surprise? It was gone too quickly to identify. Congratulations. That's quite an achievement. An uncomfortable silence descended until I finally addressed the elephant in the room. Why did you want to see me, Dad? It's been 2 years without a word. My father took a sip of water, his businesslike demeanor slipping slightly. I imagine you've seen the news about Bennett Industries. I hadn't, actually. My life was so full with Lily, teaching, and our home that I rarely followed business news anymore. My blank expression must have confirmed this. We've experienced some setbacks, he continued carefully. A failed acquisition, followed by a product recall. The board is concerned about market confidence. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, genuinely meaning it despite our estrangement. Bennett Industries had been my father's life's work. But I don't understand what this has to do with me. He straightened his silverware unnecessarily. The company needs to project stability, family values, community involvement. Your mother and I have been discussing ways to reshape our public image. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. And my award-winning teaching career would look good in company press releases? Your educational credentials and community standing could be beneficial, yes, he admitted. Particularly with the charitable foundation's focus on educational initiatives. I sat back, stunned by the audacity. Let me make sure I understand. After disowning me for marrying beneath my station, missing my wedding, ignoring the birth of your granddaughter, you now want to use my career for positive PR? Samantha, he said with a hint of the authority that had intimidated me throughout childhood, families have disagreements. But in times of crisis, they come together. Is that what this is? Coming together? Or is it just using me when it's convenient? The server returned to take our orders, providing another welcome interruption. After he departed, my father leaned forward. I've been authorized by the board to offer you a position. Director of Educational Outreach for the Bennett Foundation. The salary would be substantial, and the hours flexible. I have a job I love, I replied. And a family. His expression tightened at the mention of my family. Yes, well. The mechanic. I understand his business is doing well enough. Jason owns 2 successful auto shops now, I corrected. And his name is still Miller, just like mine. About that, my father said, his voice lowering. Part of the arrangement would involve reclaiming your Bennett identity for professional purposes. I almost laughed. You want me to change my name back? For business contexts only, he clarified. Samantha Bennett Miller would sound more substantial. Our food arrived, though my appetite had vanished. As we ate in strained silence, I considered what this offer revealed about my parents' worldview. They hadn't changed, hadn't recognized the value of my choices or my happiness. They simply needed something I now possessed: respectability in a field they had once dismissed. Your mother would like to see you, my father said as we finished our meals. And the child, of course. Her name is Lily, I said firmly. Your granddaughter. He nodded tightly. Lily, yes. Perhaps you could bring her and Jason to dinner this weekend. To discuss the proposition further. I studied my father's face, searching for any hint of genuine desire for reconciliation beyond the business opportunity. His expression remained impassive, his eyes calculating. I'll discuss it with my husband, I finally said. We make decisions together. Of course, he replied, though his tone suggested he found the concept foreign. Saturday at 7, then? Your mother will have Marion prepare something suitable. As I drove home, emotions churned inside me. The opportunity was professionally impressive, the salary likely more than I'd make in several years of teaching. But the conditions. The subtle disdain for Jason, the instrumental view of our reconciliation, the focus on optics rather than genuine relationship left a bitter taste. When I shared the encounter with Jason that evening, his response surprised me. You should consider it, he said as we washed dishes side by side after putting Lily to bed. Not for them, but for closure. You've never really had the chance to stand up to them on your own terms. What about their conditions? The name change, the using our family for PR? He shrugged. You don't have to accept those. But meeting with them might help you finally put this to rest, one way or another. I leaned my head against his shoulder, grateful once again for his wisdom. Will you and Lily come with me on Saturday? Absolutely, he said, pressing a kiss to my forehead. We're a package deal. They get all of us or none of us. Saturday evening found us driving through the gates of my childhood home, Lily babbling happily in her car seat, unaware of the tension radiating from me. Jason squeezed my hand as we pulled up to the imposing front door. "Remember," he whispered as we got out. "You're not that intimidated girl anymore. You're a successful teacher, a wonderful mother, and my amazing wife. They're the ones who need something from you now." With his words bolstering me, I rang the doorbell of my parents' mansion for the first time in nearly 3 years. The familiar chime of the doorbell echoed through the house, transporting me instantly to my childhood. I smoothed Lily's dress nervously as we waited, Jason's solid presence beside me providing much-needed support. The door swung open to reveal Marian, our longtime housekeeper, whose face broke into a genuine smile when she saw me. "Miss Samantha. Oh, it's so good to see you." Her eyes moved to Lily, widening with delight. "And this must be your little one. She has your eyes." "It's good to see you too, Marian," I said warmly, surprised by how much I'd missed her. "This is my husband, Jason." Marian shook his hand with enthusiasm before ushering us inside. The marble foyer was exactly as I remembered, imposing, cold, designed to impress rather than welcome. "Your parents are in the sitting room," Marian said, leading the way. "Can I get you anything? The little one might like some juice?" "That would be lovely, thank you," I replied, grateful for her kindness. As we approached the sitting room, I felt Jason take a deep breath beside me, squaring his shoulders. Lily, oblivious to the tension, pointed excitedly at a crystal chandelier overhead. "Sparkly," she exclaimed, her voice echoing slightly in the high-ceilinged hallway. My mother emerged at the sound, her perfect posture and immaculate appearance unchanged. Her eyes went immediately to Lily, a flicker of something, emotion? Surprise? Crossing her face before her composed mask returned. "Samantha," she said formally, then nodded at Jason. "Mr. Miller. Please, come in." My father stood near the fireplace, tumbler of scotch in hand. He assessed us with a businessman's calculating gaze before approaching. "Welcome," he said, extending a hand to Jason, who shook it firmly. "And this must be Lily." Lily, suddenly shy, buried her face in Jason's neck. The awkward tableau was broken by Marian's return with a sippy cup of apple juice and a small plate of cookies. "Look, Lily," I said gently. "Would you like a cookie?" Curiosity overcame shyness, and Lily peeked out. Marian crouched to her level, offering the plate with a warm smile that finally coaxed Lily from Jason's arms. "She's beautiful," Marian said, leading Lily to a nearby chair. "I'll keep an eye on her while you all talk." With Lily happily munching cookies under Marian's watchful eye, we adults settled into the formal seating arrangement. The conversation began stiffly, surface-level questions about the drive, comments on the weather, careful avoidance of the years of silence between us. "I've been researching your teaching methods, Samantha," my mother finally said. "Your approach to early literacy is quite innovative." The compliment, however reluctant, caught me off guard. "Thank you. I believe children learn best through meaningful engagement rather than rote instruction." "Yes, well, it's precisely this expertise that would benefit the Bennett Foundation's new education initiative," my father interjected, steering the conversation to business. "We're preparing to announce a major grant program for underperforming schools. Your involvement would lend credibility." "What exactly would my role entail?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "Public appearances, primarily," my mother replied. "Speaking engagements, interviews with the press. Perhaps consulting on grant applications. And private events," my father added. "Several key investors are particularly interested in education reform. Your presence at fundraisers would be valuable." Jason shifted beside me. "It sounds like you're more interested in Samantha's credentials than her actual expertise." My father's expression tightened. "On the contrary. Her expertise is precisely why she'd be an asset. The Foundation's work could reach far more children than a single classroom." "It's an impressive opportunity," I acknowledged. But I notice you haven't mentioned Lily or Jason in these plans. My parents exchanged glances. Family involvement could certainly be arranged for select events, my mother said carefully. Though professional settings would naturally focus on your educational background. My family is part of who I am, I said firmly. I'm not just Samantha Bennett, former debutante turned teacher. I'm Samantha Miller, teacher, wife, and mother. About that, my father began, setting down his glass. The board feels strongly that reclaiming your maiden name would strengthen the connection to the foundation. Bennett Miller would be an acceptable compromise for professional contexts. Jason's hand found mine, squeezing gently in support. And what about our life outside of these professional contexts? I asked. Would you be part of that? Would you be grandparents to Lily, not just when cameras are present? Of course we would, my mother said, though her eyes drifted to where Lily was drawing with crayons Marion had produced. Though we'd need to establish appropriate boundaries. Boundaries, I repeated flatly. What does that mean, exactly? Marion discreetly excused herself to prepare dinner, taking Lily along to help in the kitchen. Once they were gone, my father leaned forward. Let's be direct, he said. We're offering you a significant opportunity, visibility, influence, compensation far beyond what teaching provides. In return, we expect certain standards to be maintained. What standards? Jason asked, his voice level despite the obvious implication. Appearances matter, my mother interjected. The right neighborhoods, appropriate social connections, educational considerations for the child. For Lily, I corrected. Your granddaughter has a name. Yes, Lily, she conceded. Private school would be essential, of course. We'd cover the tuition. She's not even 3, I said incredulously. We haven't decided about schooling yet. These decisions should be made early, my father insisted. The right preschool leads to the right preparatory school, which leads to the right university. The way you planned my life? I challenged. The conversation grew increasingly tense as dinner was announced. We moved to the formal dining room where Lily was already seated on a booster chair, looking tiny amidst the elaborate place settings. Throughout the meal, my parents alternated between business propositions and subtle critiques disguised as suggestions. They praised my teaching award while implying I could do so much more. They acknowledged Jason's business success with faint surprise, as if his competence was unexpected. They interacted with Lily politely but distantly, like distant relatives rather than grandparents meeting their only grandchild for the first time. By dessert, the pattern was clear. Nothing had fundamentally changed. They still believed their way of life was inherently superior. They still saw Jason as somehow less worthy. They still viewed my choices as temporary detours rather than my authentic path. As coffee was served, my father pulled out a folder containing what appeared to be a contract. The foundation's offer, he explained, sliding it across the table. The salary is substantial, as you'll see. The requirements are outlined in Section 3. I opened the folder, scanning the document with growing disbelief. The position offered an impressive 6-figure salary, but the requirements section was extensive: mandatory events, dress code specifications, residential recommendations, and most telling, a clause about maintaining the Bennett family image. You want me to sign a contract to be your daughter again, I said, closing the folder. Don't be dramatic, Samantha, my mother chided. This is a professional opportunity, not a personal reconciliation. Isn't it both? I asked quietly. Isn't that why we're here in your home rather than at the foundation offices? You want the appearance of family unity without doing the actual work of healing. My father straightened, his expression hardening. We've extended an olive branch. After you chose to walk away from everything we built for you. I didn't walk away, I interrupted, my voice stronger than I expected. I chose a different path. A path that has brought me genuine happiness, professional fulfillment, and a family built on love rather than obligation. And what exactly is wrong with obligation? My father demanded. With responsibility to your name, your heritage? Nothing, if it comes with respect. With acceptance. With love. I looked between my parents. But that's not what you're offering, is it? You're offering conditional acceptance based on how useful I can be to you right now. My mother's face flushed. After all we've done for you, Dash. What have you done for me, Mom? Really? I asked, surprising myself with the direct challenge. You gave me material advantages, yes. But you withheld approval unless I followed your exact specifications. You missed my wedding. You've never sent a single gift or card for your granddaughter. Jason gently touched my arm, a silent reminder of his support. I took a deep breath before continuing. Real family doesn't require contracts. Real family shows up, even when it's difficult. Real family loves unconditionally. That's a rather simplistic view, my father scoffed. Family dynasties are built on strategic decisions, not sentimentality. Then I don't want to be part of a dynasty, I said firmly. I want to be part of a family. I stood, signaling to Jason that I was ready to leave. Thank you for dinner, but we won't be accepting your offer. Our daughter is growing up in a home where she's valued for who she is, not what she represents. Where love doesn't come with conditions or performance reviews. My mother rose as well, her composure cracking slightly. You're making a mistake, Samantha. Think of what you're giving up. I know exactly what I'm giving up, I replied. And I know what I'm choosing instead. Jason collected Lily, who had grown sleepy after the long evening. As we prepared to leave, I turned back one last time. If you ever want to be real grandparents to Lily, real parents to me, our door is open. But it will be on terms of mutual respect, not contractual obligation. We walked out of the mansion with our heads high, Lily drowsing against Jason's shoulder. As we drove away, the weight I'd carried for years seemed to lift. I hadn't realized how much I'd still been seeking their approval until I finally, completely, let it go. I'm proud of you, Jason said quietly as we turned onto the main road, leaving the gated community behind. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, I admitted. But it was necessary. In the rearview mirror, I could see Lily sleeping peacefully in her car seat, secure in the knowledge that she was completely loved. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that we had built something my parents, for all their wealth and status, had never achieved: a family bound by love rather than expectation, by joy rather than obligation. Let's go home, I said, reaching for Jason's hand. 3 years passed, each one fuller and richer than the last. The confrontation with my parents had been painful but clarifying, like lancing a wound that had festered too long. While we hadn't achieved the fairy tale reconciliation part of me had always hoped for, we had established a kind of peace, a clear-eyed understanding of where we stood. My parents did send Christmas cards after that dinner, formal affairs with their names engraved rather than signed. For Lily's birthdays, gifts would arrive expensive, age-appropriate, but impersonal. We acknowledged them with thank you notes and photos of Lily enjoying them. It wasn't the warm grandparent relationship I'd imagined for my child, but it was something, a thin thread connecting our separate worlds. Meanwhile, our own little family thrived. The preschool I had dreamed of opening became reality when a small property became available just a mile from our home. With Jason's encouragement and business sense complementing my educational expertise, Building Blocks Progressive Preschool opened its doors to 24 students. Our philosophy was simple: respect children as complete humans, foster creativity alongside academics, and create a community where diversity was celebrated. We offered scholarships to ensure economic diversity and developed a curriculum that drew from multiple educational approaches. Within a year, we had a waiting list, and I was training 2 additional teachers in our methods. Jason's auto shop business continued to expand. The second location had proven so successful that he opened a third, specializing in hybrid and electric vehicle maintenance. He promoted his longest-serving employees to management positions, giving them profit-sharing options that kept turnover low and morale high. Lily, now 5, was a curious, confident kindergartner who loved books, bugs, and building things with her dad. The little sister we'd recently welcomed, Hannah, was already showing signs of the same determined spirit, pulling herself up to stand at just 8 months old. Our modest home had been renovated room by room as time and budget allowed. The backyard now featured a vegetable garden, a play structure Jason had built, and a patio where we hosted regular gatherings of friends and chosen family. These weekend barbecues and potlucks had become a tradition, creating the warm, accepting community we'd both craved. One Sunday evening, as our guests departed and Jason put the girls to bed, I sat on the patio with a glass of wine, reflecting on how far we'd come. My phone chimed with a text message, an infrequent occurrence from my mother. Saw the article about your preschool in Connecticut education today. Well done. Dad in hospital, minor procedure, all routine. Thought you should know. The message was classic Catherine Bennett. Acknowledging my success while maintaining emotional distance, sharing information without inviting involvement. Still, it was communication, more than we'd had in the early years of my marriage. I typed a response thanking her for letting me know and wishing my father a smooth recovery. I didn't expect a reply and wasn't surprised when none came. Jason joined me on the patio, settling into the chair beside mine. Girls are out like lights. Hannah didn't even make it through the first page of the story. I smiled, showing him my mother's text. Progress, I guess? Of a sort, he agreed, taking my hand. You okay? I am, I said, realizing it was completely true. You know, for years I measured myself against what they wanted me to be. Even after I chose my own path, part of me still craved their approval. That's natural, Jason said. They're your parents. But that dinner 3 years ago, when they tried to essentially hire me back into the family, it finally broke that pattern. I saw so clearly that their love was conditional, based on how I could serve their interests. And I realized I didn't want that for Lily and Hannah. I gestured to our modest backyard, the children's toys scattered across the grass, the mismatched patio furniture that accommodated whoever stopped by. This isn't perfect or prestigious, but it's real. The people who come here love us for who we are, not what we represent. Jason squeezed my hand. You know what I'm most proud of? How you've managed to forgive them without compromising yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending everything's okay, I mused. It just means I don't carry the anger anymore. I understand them better now, they're products of their own upbringing, their own values. They genuinely believe success is measured in status and wealth. While we measure it in sticky kisses and finger paintings, Jason added with a grin. Exactly. And in friendships that don't require contracts, in work that makes us proud, in a home where everyone belongs exactly as they are. The next morning, as I prepared for a busy day at the preschool, I found a drawing Lily had made, stick figures of our family, including the cat, standing in front of our house. Above it, in her wobbly kindergarten handwriting, she'd written my family with a massive heart encompassing us all. I pinned it to our already crowded refrigerator, struck by how this simple crayon drawing captured what had taken me years to learn. Family isn't defined by bloodlines or bank accounts, by last names or legacies. Family is built through love, strengthened by acceptance, and maintained through genuine connection. My parents had offered me wealth, status, and conditional approval. I had chosen love, authenticity, and the freedom to define success on my own terms. Looking at the drawing, at the happy stick figures holding hands beneath a crayon sun, I knew without doubt I had made the right choice. That evening, as Jason and I sat at our kitchen table long after the girls were in bed, planning the next phase of the preschool's expansion, I felt a contentment that no corner office or country club membership could have provided. We were building something meaningful together, not just a business, but a life aligned with our deepest values. You know, Jason said, looking up from the blueprints spread between us, if someone had told me 5 years ago that a broken-down car in the rain would lead to all this, I'd never have believed them. The best things often come from unexpected beginnings, I replied, thinking of how far we'd come. Remember what you said to me on our wedding day, when I was upset about my parents not coming? He smiled, remembering. That family isn't just who you're born to, but who you choose to build your life with. Exactly. And we've built something beautiful. Outside our window, stars dotted the night sky above our imperfect, wonderful life. I thought of my students, of Lily and Hannah, of all the children who would grow up understanding that their worth wasn't tied to their achievements or status, but was inherent in their very being. In refusing to live by my parents' definition of success, I had found something far more valuable, the freedom to create a life of genuine meaning and connection. It hadn't been an easy journey, but it had led me exactly where I needed to be. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own happiness? What helped you make that difficult decision? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the family you build is even more important than the one you're born into. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to create a life that truly reflects your values, whatever they may be.